This is so good. Hi, girls. Hi. Welcome, everybody, to this week's Is It Offering. It's such a pleasure to be on here once again because we're talking about one of my favourite topics, but also we're talking to a really, really dear friend of mine whose name is Suki Zoe, and she's otherwise known as the Colon Whisperer. I actually met Suki, 8 years ago probably, when I was after my own colonic and went up to Ubud, Bali, which I frequently visit, and anyway, Suk was my colonic hydrotherapist, and as you do with colonics, we bonded very much on the table, and I've been back to her lots of times, but we've become really good friends since. And you know, I was thinking, it would be really cool to do a wisdom offering on the deeper aspects of cleansing and colonics, and demystifying what colonics do and how they work on not just a physical level, but also on that deeper kind of emotional level, because we all know that the second brain's in the gut, and that's a very, big part of this. So anyway, I thought, honestly, I couldn't think of a better person than Suki to bring onto this call. So she's been doing colonics and working in the field of health and cleansing for 20 plus years. She's also an amazing photographer and an incredible raw chocolate maker. But anyway, I'm not going to tell her story. I'll let her do that for you this afternoon. It is here in WA. But Suki, welcome.
Thank you for having me here. You're one of our first clients when we opened up in Bali, and I remember that day I met you. You made your mark.
Awesome. So funny.
So, colonics found me. I wasn't looking for colonics at the time, and I didn't know where it would lead me at the time. My friend was booking herself one, and I said, "Oh, book me," not knowing what I was getting into. And I show up to see Gil Jacobs in New York, who's now known as like the godfather of colonics, or the poo guru. And he offered to train me just like that. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I don't know anyone else who does colonics, so that might be cool. And then I had a colonic, and it was life-changing. I still remember how it felt walking down the street, down 6th Avenue in New York that day. I wanted to stop everybody and say, oh my God, go and have a colonic. It's going to change your life. And so I trained with Gil, which was more of an apprenticeship for a year and a half, just like watching and listening, and had physical experiences that I'd never had before. So it wasn't so much about the knowledge or the information, because back then there wasn't really anything gluten-free. It was embarrassing to be vegetarian. It wasn't, this is like 97. I stopped drinking overnight. That was a really radical thing to do in my social circle. And we got into the cleansing lifestyle. And I didn't have the full picture back then of what my health problems were. It's only now that I can piece back and go, oh, I had this and this and this and this. But like any good cliche, we get into healing because we need to heal ourselves, and because the medical knowledge at the time was failing us terribly. So it was a question of, let's try this and see if it works. And if it's good, let's keep doing it. And then let's try something else, which is how most of us end up in this, in this area. So, then I came back to London, and it's a very different scene in London than New York. The New York's already have their juices, and they're already waking up early and running. And in London, it's all about meat and potatoes. So it's like, what? I guess my I'm going off on a tangent. My health story is that, and this is the biggest piece I only put together a couple of years ago, is that I'm the daughter of DES, which is a hormone mothers were injected with while they were pregnant to keep their pregnancies safe. And it's somewhat comparable to thalidomide, except that it's not didn't create such physical problems. And I was in the very last generation of DES. My mother had a hysterectomy when she was in her early 30s. I've had menstrual problems my whole life. I did, however, have a stomach of steel, or so I thought, until I was 20. I could eat and drink anything. I had weight problems, and I had allergies and sinus and annual bronchitis and pneumonia and asthma and hay fever. But I thought I could get away with eating everything. until I went traveling. The first time was to Thailand. The year later was to Nepal. The year after that was to Egypt. Each time I was completely floored. And I'd come back to England, go to the doctor, ask for tests. I'd be on the toilet 16 times a day, but my stomach was like I was 5 months pregnant. They had no answers for me. They said there was nothing wrong with me. And I'm like, hang on a minute. There's got to be some information out there. There's got to be some books that can help. I discovered this thing called Candida, which my doctor said didn't exist, and that yogurt at the time was the only fermented foods we knew about. She said that was no good. And I'm like, oh, hang on a minute. Ooh, there's something to this. So then I started reading and reading and reading. And at that point, I was probably a really tedious, know-everything friend who was just bombarding everyone with all this information when they didn't have any for it. Like, oh, you should do this and you shouldn't do that and you should stop, blah, blah, blah. And then when I found colonics, it was a natural fit because I already had primed myself, and then I had people to share this information with who wanted to hear it and, were willing to hear it, grateful for it.
Yeah.
And so it was since I got into colonics and went vegan that my endometriosis cleared up. With colonics and diet and energy work, my fibroids disappeared, my cysts, and at every stage doctors have been trying to tell me I needed to have operations, and I was thinking, I just want to avoid surgery at all costs. There's got to be something I can do for this, no matter how far out there is. And eventually I found one specialist who said, try everything you can, just try acupuncture, try Chinese herbs, try blah 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 blah. I'm like, thank you, I'm not coming back to you guys for this again, I'm done.
Yeah.
And it's just been a non-stop journey ever since of experiential healing, basically.
Yeah.
There is no one size fits all. The healers I was seeing 10 years ago aren't where I'm at now. I've had teachers and healers and therapists, and as we change and heal, and we know we need different people. So
that's right.
And it continues. Yeah.
It does continue, and it's going to continue because we keep going through. We come up against the next hurdle, the next challenge, and then that health has to mimic that, because that's the way that our soul speaks to us as well, through health, through our physical body. So I love that you mentioned all of that stuff, and really we have all got our own stuff going on, and I suppose why a lot of us in this group have it's very well known that we're all. If you're in this group, you've probably tried either a nutritional cleansing through Isagenix, if that's what's led you here, or another type of cleansing in a different realm that is essentially trying to do or doing the same thing. It's by being aware of our inputs that are not necessarily always serving us in this day and age, physically, but also energetically. And I think, as you said, there are so many different modalities out there to try. And colonics is just one of those, right? It helps to clear debris of energetic and physical nature. But awesome.
Colonics is the only one that clears dense physical matter in that way. Basically, acupuncture and energetic modalities are very sensitive. And they were invented a long, long time ago when the human body was cleaner and clearer and wasn't living with the concrete and the Wi-Fi we're dealing with now. So there's only so much benefit you can get from the sensitive energetics now if your body is too dense. So if you are 40 pounds overweight and you go to your acupuncturist or your osteopath and they're not telling you to lose weight, there's a problem in that your body isn't able to receive the subtle energies at that moment optimally. If you lose the weight, clear the gut, then you're going to have a session. Then that person can work deeper and quicker on you, and it's far more effective as a tool.
Absolutely. And look, cleansing in its whole entirety is multifaceted, right? There's not just one way of doing it, and colonics is a piece of the puzzle. And I think what would be cool to do on this call, which we're about to dive into, is because there'd be a lot of women who have had colonics on this call, and lots that have perhaps been given misinformation or have been misguided or don't quite understand it or whatever. So I think what would be cool to do now is just to kind of demystify some of the some of the things that have been, like some of the frequently asked questions that you get asked, but also the miseducation around. And I know we could talk about this for like 24 hours, and we have.
We actually could.
Actually have. But yeah, do you want to start there?
Yeah. One of the biggest question I get is, or I'm just seeing somebody's face now going, no thanks, I'm okay down there. Like, well, actually you're not, because in your hand you have a glass of wine and a packet of crisps, and your colon is on average the same as your height, so it's 5 to 6 foot long. If you're only going to the toilet once a day and you're releasing that much poo, you've got 6 foot of backed up poo, which is 15 to 20 pounds at any one time. You're not okay down there, because what you're putting in isn't fueling your optimal health, you know. So that's the first one. The second one is that it's dangerous, and yeah, you know, there might be a few therapists out there who don't know what they're doing, and in which case it's dangerous. But for the 99.9% of therapists who are trained to know what they're doing, it's not dangerous. It's a safe and gentle procedure using pure, warm, filtered water, and it's, for some people, relaxing enough for them to fall asleep on the table. So it can be a really great experience.
Yeah.
What else?
Mine have.
What?
Mine have been amazing experiences.
Have you ever fallen asleep?
Yeah.
No.
I haven't fallen asleep, no, but have been very uplifting, and very much so. And I must say that at different times that I've gone, I've had radically different experiences in terms of, you know, that emotional side as well, physical side, and you know, and that's one thing to know as well. It's each one or series that you have will be radically different depending on where you're at.
Well, the colonic is always the same. It's the body that changes. So so it depends on what you bring to the table each day, whether you're hydrated, stressed, time of the year, the time in your life,
cycle.
The time in your cycle, the seasons, all of that. I'm not, you know, it's just turning spring here in England. Everything is charging up and bursting through, and we've literally just got sun for the first time in a really long winter, and the energy is so different, and the colonics are different, obviously. And I also do colonics by the moon. I have a moon chart up in my room, so I always know where the moon is in the signs. And often the first colonic of the day sets the tone for everybody else that day. But it's really obvious when the moon's in Taurus that the colonic will be like a little bit stubborn, and then rush to the end. And I double check the chart. I'm like, oh yeah, it's Taurus.
Yeah. So, you know, this is just beautiful conversation to really understand that, and all of the women in the group would get this as well, that it's not just a physical hose up the pipe, water goes in. It's so much more than that.
No, people bring, I mean, obviously I have a lot of clients who come with constipation, and either it's a physical thing, it's anatomical, or it's emotional stress, or kind of something that's not so describable.
Yeah.
And so I get them breathing in certain areas in their body to try and release the belly. So sometimes it's obvious that they're holding their stress in the belly, and that's creating constipation. Or there's a kink somewhere that's just literally holding on in a way that they may not be constipated typically, but there'll be some tension pattern in their colon, which could be connected to their neck or somewhere in their spine. But if I get them breathing in different areas and I see where they're breathing, where their body's moving, then if they access that place and they can go deep inside themselves and access that place, boom.
Yeah. Almost like, you know, it's really the colon is like reflexology. You can do, can you call that reflexology?
Well, yeah, there are reflexology points throughout the whole colon which connect to the whole body. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think really, you know, when you're talking from that emotional kind of indescribable standpoint, and you know, we talked about this yesterday, we were talking about, I really don't like the word spiritual, because everyone is spiritual in their own right with their own views on everything. So I really, it's not, I don't like the term spiritual, but it is that indescribable what's going on. And essentially, because the second brain is in the gut, and your gut is, you know, that there's so much going on in there that we don't even understand, right?
Yeah, really.
And so moving that, you don't know what you're moving. And if you've got, you know, emotional or emotional, mental stuff that's going on, then the colonic can radically affect that, right?
Well, the most obvious cases of that are when people come in, and I feel this in myself, when I'm angry and I have a colonic, I come out and I'm calm. Or if I go in with crazy cravings. I used to work in a clinic where I had the storage room for the shop above was right behind the colonic wall, and it was full of chocolate. And I'd be like sitting there treating somebody, but screaming to just dive through that wall and get the chocolate. I'd have a colonic, no thought of chocolate for 3 days. Literally, it just took the craving away that quickly. And I'm like, oh yeah, that craving was so strong. And if I hadn't been with someone, I would have gone and got some and just given in. So whatever was in my gut at that time was wanting that chocolate. You take that fermentation away, and that magnet for what it wants is gone.
Gone. Cool. Yeah. So let's then dive into that a little bit deeper about good and bad bacteria.
Yes.
And can we talk about that a bit?
Well, yeah, that's another frequently asked question. Doesn't it remove all my good bacteria? No, it doesn't remove good bacteria. Firstly, most people don't have enough good bacteria. And secondly, the colonic colonic removes putrefaction and fermentation. Once you take the poisons out, the good bacteria has a chance to rebalance if you're feeding them the right stuff to rebalance, which will be probiotics, which need to be rotated every month or so, and preferably living fermented foods. Then you have a chance to have good bacteria. But your average person eating the standard diet, if they're not eating fermented foods, prebiotics or probiotics, they don't really have any. They're literally full of sludge. So the best way to have a healthy microbiome is to get out the old poisons and then rebalance.
Yeah. And this isn't a topic to scare people or scare anyone and go, oh my God, quick, go out there and grab a colonic. Like it's education, right? So we're trying to educate.
Obviously, there's nothing to be scared about because we've all survived up until this point. However, we've survived. But if you do have health challenges, or you're cleansing and you have a foggy head, or you're cranky and irritable, that's because your colon's full. And at that point, there's no point in taking another liver flush or herbal cleansing kidney teas if your colon's full, because there's nowhere for the stuff to go. So I'm a big fan of home care. I'm not, I mean, obviously I'm a big colonic fan, but I would say it's really amazing to have a home care of Kalima boards, enemas, something that you're in charge of yourself, so you can tune in with your own body on a regular basis. And once you start doing that, you really know the difference between when you need one and how it feels to have them.
That's right. And and I'm sure most of the grouping will be, get the nutritional are in the nutritional space where we're looking after ourselves on that level. But really, it's not about eating the sludge, and then being able to go and get a colonic and get it like flushed all out. It's a holistic approach, right? Oh, yeah. So the colonic just
the days of people coming to me and saying, oh, I had a steak last night because I was seeing you today, no one really does that anymore, thankfully.
But look, we're not saying, but on that, it's not that we're not saying as well steaks are bad too. Because
no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the psychology of, I can have this now and be naughty because I'm having a colonic tomorrow. That doesn't really work. It makes the colonic harder,
Absolutely. And I think, that's one thing to really note is that there can be that, and if you've done a lot of cleansing, that you think, I'm had 2 big days or a massive weekend of binge eating or whatever, or just had a party, or, we go on those roller coasters sometimes of indulgence, and then going, no worries, I'll just have a session of 3 colonics on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's like, it's a holistic approach to wellness. And this is an added benefit or an added tool in your belt to help you get that next bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. All right. There's something else I wanted. So could you explain then the difference between what you do, which is gravity, and machines?
So gravity method is old school. We come from the lineage of Arnold Ehret, who's basically, the premise is what you don't eat that saves you. So it's avoiding all the the rubbish. That's another tangent. That saves you. So gravity colonics, stemming from Arnold Error and then Norman Walker, is a bucket of warm filtered water hung on the wall above a bed, coming down through a tube into the speculum, which is in your bum, and then out to the waist. Super simple. All the tubes are manipulated by the therapist. There's no dials, no switches, nothing fancy. It's like really old school, 150 years old technique. I think it stemmed from Germany, actually, the gravity method. And then the machines, there's open systems, and I think you have them more in Australia. I think they were invented there, where you lie on a purpose-built table, which is like all plastic, and you poo down a hole. And then there's the enclosed machines, the Dortolo, etc., where there's knobs and dials and switches.
Yeah. And so, and then your home care, which is essentially the enema, is basically a smaller, more simplified version of what you do, right?
Well,
because it's
next comes the Kalima board, which is awesome, and I recommend everyone get a Kalima board, which is a 5-gallon bucket. You can, it doesn't have to be on a wall, it can be on a chair next to you, ideally a little bit higher. And the board is like a small surfboard that you place on the toilet at one end and on a chair on the other end, or some other strong supporting thing, and you treat that yourself. So it's 5 gallons of water. And then the enema bag is anything from 1 to 3 liters of water, and you hang that on a hook behind the door, and you lie it down on the bathroom floor somewhere warm and comfortable, and treat yourself that way. But there's less water involved with the enema, and it's a little bit harder to relax because you need to hold it in, and then I'm not very good at the enemas, and then you jump on the loo when you need to release. All of which are amazing, because it's better out than in, always. But again, I think too, it's one of those things that if you're feeling great and you're feeling everything's like tickety boo with your health, then you don't need to be doing them if you're feeling amazing, right? I mean, I'm talking to the client. I know I'm talking to you about this, and thank God you're a really good friend of mine. But what I'm trying to say is that it's not supposed to be like, oh, I've got to do my colonic, like, got to book in every week. Like, it's not, this call is education about colonics. It's not you need to have one now every week for the rest of your life. No. I would say, well, actually, you know what? I've taken a break for the last couple of years from colonics, and I really wish I hadn't, because I can see the difference in my face and in my hair. Like, I've aged exponentially, and my hair's gone grayer, and each colonic is literally like plastic surgery. I come off with my, I'm going, oh, okay, I'm getting my face back again. And so I was talking about this with my best friend the other day, and she was talking about, well, I can't have a colonic because my diet isn't good right now. I'm like, but honey, that's exactly why you want to have a colonic, because it will help you tune in to the best diet for you. So I've come to that place where I wish everyone for life would have regular exercise. Okay. You know, even if it's just enemas, there's no need to pay somebody, just get one bag, it'll last you 10 years. And then try it. That's it. Yeah. But this is kind of, and it's not that it's about being addictive. It's that understanding that unless we are squatting every day, and we're living like you are, basically, you know, you're living in the best possible place with clean air, amazing land, not too much Wi-Fi bombardment, your body stands a better chance of thriving than most of us living in cities. I've got, I don't know how many Wi-Fi things around here right now. And I walk on concrete every day, and I'm on the public transport and blah, blah, blah. Oh. So I'm dealing with a lot more input than you are. And so we have to look at our genetic inheritance, our genetic weaknesses, how our body functions. Are we squatting? Are we eating clean foods? If we're not, we need to find a way to balance that somehow, either by doing isogenics kind of cleanse, or whether it's a long-term program or it's a seasonal program. Or you just keep on doing what you're doing because you feel great until crisis hits. But I'm talking about more like crisis aversion. If you want to live long and healthy, and we want to live, we want to be thriving and touching our toes when we're 80, right? 90, 100.
Back bends, back flips, you name it, we're doing it.
I still can't do the fucking back flip. If we have those goals, then it's, you know, doing a cleanse 5 years ago isn't going to keep us on track to that goal when we're 90. So it depends on what our goals are. Yeah.
Great, and thanks for mentioning it, that because it is very much dependent on the individual, and everyone is obviously in a different living situation. And I think there to really note that those extracurricular energetic stresses that have an effect on our nervous system, I mean, that's all having an effect on our gut, right? Yeah, I mean, that's everything.
Why our relationships are all over the people around us, everything.
Absolutely. And really, you know, kind of when I think about it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that all of that stress that built up, like whatever it is, it's just like the colon's just like tensing up and grabbing onto the shit wherever it can, you know. Is that right? Like it just builds up because you are in a stressed state, or a state of I mean, stress is a very broad term, but
yeah, and it's hard to pinpoint what stress is because it's so different for everybody, and the body is doing its best all the time to heal and regenerate. So and depending on our predisposition, or in homeopathy it would be our miasm, right? Then it would then the stress will go to a certain place. So people will have the same exposure to a certain element, and they will all manifest that in a different kind of problem in their body.
Sure, but the fact that we are seeing like every second person, even more maybe, that gut issues and, you know, digestion issues are just rife, like, and so yeah, I mean, it just makes sense, doesn't it, that the colon is harboring a lot of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like just yeah. Oh, cool. Awesome chats. All right, so let's just talk a little bit more then about perhaps you could share a couple of stories that you've had of people on the table who have had shifts, both physical shifts. You know, you don't necessarily talk about the type of poo that's coming out, although that's an interesting conversation in itself. But also, like, you know, those energetic, or perhaps just experiences that people have had on the table that in your time that you've you know, been doing the colonics.
Well, the most recent one, I just got back to London and I had this new client, and she's in her early 20s, very extreme psoriasis, very, very, very extreme. And the psoriasis, any skin problem is so connected to the colon. It's going to be massive fermentation, and it's going to be leaky gut, all kinds of inflammation. The email she sent me the next day after her colonic made me cry, because she's like, I have never felt good my whole life. This is the first time I've ever, I know, oh my God, I'm doing the right thing. So and, you know, and after somebody whose body's been that, and her whole family's got this too, so they were born with it. Her dad died of it. Her and her two brothers have it as well. And you, with somebody you just don't know which way it's going to go, and so all night I was going, is she okay, is she okay, is she okay? And I got this email.
Yeah,
amazing. It depends on people's sensitivities, how they feel on the table. Some people, like I said, fall asleep, and they literally, I had a couple of guys snoring.
Some cry, break down.
Cry. I had a few. Yeah, some people cry, and it's either for the whole session, and you're thinking, should I stop? But it's a catharsis.
Release, right?
Yeah. I've had a couple of people vibrate on the table, literally just start to kind of levitate on the table. And again, I've never had anyone ask me to stop because of it. They're like, no, keep going. Or right. I had one of my friends, she's again quite sensitive, collapsed in the bathroom afterwards, howling through some earlier situation she'd had in her life that again was a release of, you know, howling, you know. These are extreme cases. The most radical shifts around people with skin problems because their skin starts clearing up really, really quickly. That's amazing to see. That's a visual thing. Or and
the eyes are a visual thing too, hey?
Oh my God, yeah. Every time I have a colonic, my eyesight improves. Not only do I feel the poisons draining from my face, I'm quite sensitive, but my eyesight, the gas pressure behind your eyes. So the whole body is permeable. There's osmosis going on constantly. If you have a build up in your colon, that's putting pressure on the rest of your body, and the gas pressure behind your eyes pushes your eyeballs out and changes your focus. So if you stop eating sugar and cleanse, your eyesight will start to improve. As if by magic.
As if by magic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to it, right? And there's, you know, as I said, there's a lot of informed women in the group, and, you know, on the subject of cleansing, and there are so many different ways that we can cleanse. I think it's as I said, an added tool. And I think if you you know, if you feel like, and look, try it. Just if you have never tried it for yourself, book in for a session with, you know, someone that, I mean, Sook's in London, so I don't know how many of you know. She was in Bali.
Hi, Londoners.
It's fine. We're doing the call when the US are asleep. But anyway.
But no, I'm a big fan of other cleansing tools as well, like infrared saunas, big time. Any saunas, but particularly infrared saunas. So if you're going to do any cleansing, do that also. And steam saunas, infrared, massage, anything that gets the body moving, rebounding, lymph drainage.
Yeah, and and tongue brushing, or is it like tongue cleaning,
scraping,
and skin
brushing.
Skin brushing.
Yeah.
So if the cleansing kind of world interests you and you're already exploring it, then
oil packs.
I mean, there's heaps more things that you can do to add into that. And no, they're not for everyone, and they may not be for you. But this is why we're having this call, just to kind of try and to provide a bit of information or education around, you know.
I think castor oil is for everyone, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah, because a bottle of castor oil costs, what, $10? You can use it for for so many things. It's antiviral, antibacterial, antifungicidal. So it's a really useful thing to have in the house if you've got any viral problems or infections or inflammation.
Yeah, and that really did help when I was doing self-administered enemas. That was amazing for, you know, shifting. Yeah. You get good old castor oil pack. Oh, cool. All right. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to bring up? I mean, honestly, there's so much really you could share, and I think, you know.
I think the other question that there's two things. Firstly, the concept of intuitive eating, and it's a thing right now, right? Intuitive eating. It's not possible to be intuitive if your body is craving decay and sugar. You have to get that stuff out somehow. So you have to do a cleanse first. So you have to do isogenics for however long before you get to a place where you can be truly intuitive. And if you're cleansing and you're craving something, it's because your body is craving that which slows down the detox process. Detox process. So, for example, I'm not doing pizza because I've got an echo.
Huh.
I'm so very English.
Do you? I don't.
Yeah, don't worry. So I don't crave things that I haven't had for a really long time or I've never had. You can't crave what you've never had, right? So I've never had Kentucky Fried Chicken. My body has no memory of it. I can't crave it. You can only crave what your cells contain. If you clear those cells, you have no more cravings. And the second thing is, what was I going to say? Intuitive eating.
That's a great one about intuitive eating, though, because when Sarah and I did that first call, we were talking about cravings, and that's I'm so glad you brought that up, because I don't know if we touched on that call. But to try and recognize, it's hard to try and recognize with your mind where the craving is coming from. If it's your mind just going, give me.
Exactly.
Yeah, if it's the sugar talking.
So what I would say in that instance is figure out what the craving is for. Is it salt, fat, sugar? And how can you stimulate? So for me, if I wanted salt and fat, I'd eat olives. Find something else that satisfies that craving without going to the more acidic foods. And the other thing right now is there's a mass vegan movement here. I don't know about there. I've come back to London after 10 years away, and there's vegan junk food everywhere. Vegan junk food is still junk food. And it does not mean that you're being healthier. My background is always cleansing over a diet dogma. So
100%. My God.
When the raw food movement first started up, there was no cleansing involved. They were just eating tons of dried fruit and nuts. And I'm watching going, there's so much heaviness. And just because you're eating right doesn't mean it's any more healthy than that, because the body doesn't know the difference sometimes. And there's also a massive gut health movement, and there's all these gut experts talking about the microbiome, but no one's talking about colonics. And there's a missing link there with, you can't just put something in. It's like throwing your vitamins at a mud wall and expecting it to go in. It's just going to slide down the wall. If you're full of mud, you need to get the mud out and give your vitamins access to your cells. So the easiest way to hydrate and activate your cells is juicing.
And drinking high quality water as well.
Absolutely. I'm a big water.
Like that's a huge one.
Huge.
And I think one that's definitely it's skipped or missed because people just think, it's a glass of water, and it's hard to tell the visual difference between a glass and a glass. But if you haven't looked at your water source, I highly recommend to do that.
Yeah. So I guess the problem I'm seeing with the probiotic movement, and there's so many new probiotics out there and people talking about the microbiome, is that what they don't understand is that if your colon is full of putrefaction, which is rotting meat, and fermentation, which is fermenting sugars, if you're throwing a few probiotics in there, they have so much work to do to deal with these two, and you can have these, they're about this size, pockets of these things in your colon at all times, wanting to be fed. If you put probiotics in, you're going to feel gassy and bloated. It's not going to feel good, and you're going to think the probiotics aren't working because you suddenly feel worse. If you get that stuff out, then the probiotics can start to work on their own.
That right there could have been a whole conversation. No, but it's a big one, right? Because everyone's talking about probiotics and prebiotics, and then they're wondering why, when they're eating these fermented foods, they're just feeling gassy and gross, and they're like, oh, they're not working. Well, it's not that they're not working.
Fruit, and I've always been sensitive to fruit. If you eat too much fruit, it's very cleansing. You're going to feel the results really quickly. You're going to feel gassy and bloated because the fruit wants to blast through your system, cleansing as it goes. And if you've got stuff in there that's stuck, and if you've got gas pockets, which most of us do, the gas pockets cause buildup, just basically a ball of gas, which nothing can get past. And you might be farting a little bit, not knowing that you've got this much gas inside you. The colon can contain a lot of stuff. And even really skinny people can have very long and very full colons. Sometimes the skinniest people have the longest, fullest colons.
Yeah, you definitely can't tell by the physical appearance. Like, that's not the definitive. And look, the other thing about, vegan, because obviously there are a lot of plant-based women in here, which is great. I mean, there is no...
Well, there's a difference. I'm talking about the vegan movement, as in, let's eat cupcakes and brownies and vegan replacement foods. I'm plant-based, and that's all about, for me, that's all about health. That's a very different thing from being vegan.
Yeah, and I think look, there's a lot of very knowledgeable women here again, so that there's an understanding, but that's a really good point to bring up, because vegan doesn't necessarily mean healthy, right?
No, I mean, my first year on being vegetarian, I literally lived off potato waffles and cottage cheese because I didn't know any different back then. I was just, I was like, okay, I like potato waffles. No concept of, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll have a shot of cartoned orange juice for my vitamin C. That was my knowledge of nutrition at the beginning.
Yeah.
So you can live on bread and cheese and be vegetarian and not be healthy. And those are the pale, kind of pasty vegetarians who look like they need a chlorophyll shot.
Yeah, but I must say, I have gone through the vegetarian, the vegan, the raw, all of that, kind of delved into that realm, and now I just eat. I've got no label, and I just eat what I feel like, right? And yes, some of that is, I love my breads, I love my cheeses, and I love my meats. I'm going to say that because, I know this group is predominantly plant-based, but I just want to recognize that my journey, I first came to you because colon was like a fucking brick, excuse my French, because I was vegetarian at the time, but I was eating so many nuts. And I'm talking about like, remember?
You were making granola, right?
Like 500 grams to a kilo, like loads. And my gut was so, like, anyway, it was, I had a lot of emotional stuff going on, and to ground.
Thankfully, I have memory problems.
No, but honestly, like my energetic in that like, you know, I was vegan at the time, I think, or at least vegetarian, and there's so much energetic and emotional stuff that I was processing, that to ground, I would just go like, I mean, I'd eat a whole jar of tahini, just like out of the jar, like the whole freaking jar. And, you know, I thought, oh no, it's cool because it's nuts, like it's all good. But, you know, it clearly wasn't cool, and I was not in a good way. And, you know, and you know, the rest is history. But what I suppose I'm just trying to say here is that it's all got to be in balance. So it's not necessarily that if it's healthy food doesn't necessarily mean it's in the proportions that you're eating. It may not be. Is that a good?
Yeah, absolutely. But also, what I think is interesting now is that you are eating what you're eating where you're living, and that you're walking with bare feet in your garden to feed your chickens. You and your kids and Rusty will all share a microbiome because you're all eating and touching the same things. So whoever you live with, you start to have the same bacterial makeup as them.
Sure.
That's amazing.
And I think the other point of that is the cheeses and the meats and the breads that we're eating are all local, and they're all organic produced. So I think the quality
local,
of the food,
seasonal, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, that was so funny. Didn't think I was going to share that, but you know, my guts are in a bad way at that point. So he's like, got the bag, and she's like, what the fuck is in it? What have you been eating? I'm like, oh, nothing, just like had 2 kilos of nuts yesterday. It's all good.
I'm like, no. What was that machine you were that machine you have? I can't remember the name of it.
I don't know.
That cooking machine that you make food in.
Oh, the thermo,
yeah. And that's the first time I'd ever heard of that thing. And you were making granola, right, for your company?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And eating granola.
Loads of it. And I'm not saying granola's bad. Maybe in the quantities.
No, granola's awesome, but not in those quantities.
All right. Well, look, Silk, is there anything else that is there any last thing that you want to kind of enlightening share that you want to finish up?
If there's one takeaway, I'd say for everyone to squat. When you poo, just squat, because your body is designed to squat, not designed to sit on a toilet. And heavy pharmaceutical laxative industry is supported by the fact that we sit on stupid toilets.
Yeah.
And that is colon cancers are linked to countries which use regular toilets and not squatting toilets.
That's so. And so, look, I knew that was going to be.
One more thing.
Oh yeah.
If you've got constipation and you're sitting on a regular toilet, don't strain. It creates piles. It's better off for you to massage inside your left hip bone and breathe and push in with your fingers than to strain your anus, because you will end up prolapsing and creating piles that way, and it's not nice.
Yeah, great points to finish on. And just on that squatting thing, you drink water, yeah. And just on that squatting, you can just put, like, I've got a little step that I use, a step thing that I always use. You can Google the squatty potty. It's quite funny. Have you seen that? The squatty potty with the unicorn.
I've got one at work, but it's actually kind of clumsy because it's quite big.
Is it?
Yeah, I'd rather actually squat on the toilet, like put my feet on the toilet if it's strong enough, or use this. I just have like kiddie steps, like the IKEA kiddie stools, that kind of thing. Or,
anything that you
just a beautiful antique you have kicking around, just use that. I do end up stubbing my toes on them regardless, so I would rather get a light one that doesn't break my toes every time I kick them.
But the idea is to get your knees up to
unkink your rectum. So your rectum on the toilet is like that. If you squat, it opens up and your poo will just slide out.
Slide out, yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's huge. Anyone who's ever had an anal fissure, my God, that'll change your whole world.
Yeah. Or an abscess inside. Jesus.
Yeah. So, wow, they were 2 perfect points to finish on.
Okay.
Squat and don't strain, ladies.
Yeah, don't strain. Don't strain.
Oh, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Silk. What an epic conversation. I will, if anyone has any questions, please put them in the feed, because Silk more than happy to answer them or whatever. And I'll put up a little video to the Squatty Potty, so you can at least see the action of the anus.
Okay.
You know, because have you seen that YouTube vid that show? It's a good one. It will show
you. I've posted it on Instagram.
Oh, sweet. Okay, cool. And yeah, if you want to follow Silk, the Colon Whisperer.
Thank you.
Awesome. Over and out, girls. Thanks, Silk.
Bye.
Bye.